Facebook, how's it going? I am sorry. I've been really sick this week, like obnoxiously sick. We've had this weird head cold going around my house, and I have fallen victim at last. I think I'm the last one in the house to get sick. So I feel like I'm okay, but I'm also on a lot of cold meds, so today should be super fun. Let's see, today I want to talk about a couple things. Some questions that I've gotten during this series. Somebody had asked me to talk about how to use Freebie, so we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about formatting your submissions. So we'll talk about that first, because I work, so if you know me, you know I do submissions in-house for Clean Teen and Crimson Tree Press. And I see a lot of really basic formatting mistakes. Every publishing house is going to have their own sort of style of formatting and certain things that they're going to request or look for a submission particularly. If you're not sure, usually you'll be able to find it on their website. You'll be able to go to submissions and it'll say, you know, Times New Roman, 12-point font, blah, 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 blah. Follow the instructions to the T as best you can. If you are, hi, Nadim, I hope I said that right. We, at Clean Teen, we are fairly flexible. I mean, if you send us something and it's not quite formatted to our requests, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to get you rejected. But just as a tip, I'm seeing a lot of things come through that are pretty basic formatting mistakes that you can avoid. And it just makes your submission that much stronger. The first one I see a lot of is people that don't understand how to use italics. If you're doing an internal thought, your character is thinking something to themselves, something that's not being said but that is internal dialogue. I've seen it come in capitalized, like in all caps. I've seen it come in bolded. I've even seen it come in underlined. That is the wrong way to do that. Again, this is, you know, subjective from house to house. But as a rule of thumb, that is what italics are for. Italics are for that internal thought. You can also use italics inside a dialogue tag for emphasis. If you're trying to say, you know, he really wanted something, then you can italic the second really, and it makes it stand out within the sentence. Again, don't do bold, don't underline, do not all caps it. Do not. It drives me insane. Like, it's just a pet peeve. Please don't do that. The other thing, and I actually get on one of my co-authors a lot for this, do not double space after a period. I know there's a whole group of us that were taught that double spacing after a period is the correct way to format your book. It is not, particularly not in fiction. Your poor editor is going to have to go through every single line and take those out. And when a submission comes in and we see that, it's a collective like, ugh, because we know how much work it's going to be and how pissed off our editors are going to be at us for handing them something like that. So italics for emphasis, for internal thought. Don't double space after the period. For Pete's sakes, Joe says typewriters. Yes, there was a whole group of us, and I remember learning it in school that the correct way. And for business writing, it might be different. Like, I don't do professional business writing, but that might still be something that they do. But for fiction writing, it is not. It is not correct. The other pet peeve I have is, again, we're talking sort of dialogue tags. I'm going to do this once for you guys, because I really want you to understand. So it's dialogue, comma, he said, or whatever your tag is, period. The he should be undercase, like not an uppercase he, like lowercase dialogue tag, period, and then into a second quote if you have a second bit of dialogue that they're still talking. Please, 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 comma, inside your brackets, lowercase to the dialogue tag, period, into the next set of dialogue if you have dialogue continuing, is the correct way to format that. And it's easy to mess up, and there are rules that kind of change, and it's tricky. I feel like going into it, you need to know the rules before you can break the rules. And there are times when you can break those rules, absolutely. But for the most part, those are the three top mistakes that are so common. I see in almost every submission that we get. And It's not going to get you rejected, but it's enough that it gives us pause. And if we're already sort of on the fence about something, it would be enough to like kind of push it over. Oh, Joe just posted one. Yeah, if you're curious, quote, he wanted to hit me in the face, comma, end quote. She said, lowercase, quote, I slapped him first. Yes, that is how you do that correctly. Thank you, Joe. Mwah. I love you. That is the correct way to format that. Lindsay says it's a good thing she doesn't write books. I always use double spaces. And again, it's just, I feel like it's an age thing. It's kind of how we were taught in school. Again, those of us that are ancient and were taught on typewriters or word processors, you know, that you double spaced after the period. Don't do it. It's not okay. And going forward with that, every time someone new speaks, it should be on its own line. So you can't have two characters dialogue on the same line. That is also one of those messy things. It's basic stuff, but it's, you know, it's basic enough that a lot of people aren't, you know, really conscious of it when they're writing, particularly a first draft, which is why it's so important to get a good look through. And it's why editors make the big bucks. Like, editors are worth their weight in gold, because they will go and they will find all that crap that you missed, that you didn't know. And I'm as guilty of it as anybody. I've had books that I've looked at later and been like, oh, I totally forked up that stupid, you know, comma or whatever. It's great. Helen says, a good copy editor is helpful too. Absolutely. Good copy editors. I don't know how editors do it. You guys are amazing. Again, every house has their own sort of in-style guide that they use. So talk to your publisher. I'm not a big advocate of telling authors to get their work edited before they submit to a publishing house, because a good publishing house will help you edit that work. But that said, it should be as clean and as precise as you can possibly get it going in, just because it helps your chances. Yeah, if something's really messy, it's hard to look at it and be like, oh, you know. And I see it from authors that, like, we've already published, and it's like a second or third in a series that we're getting, and I'm just like, oh, don't do that. For the love of Pete. If I see something underlined in a fiction manuscript, it just makes me crazy, because there's no reason to do that ever. We actually had a submission come in where the author had, instead of italicized, she had used like a script font. Seriously, don't do that. Please don't do that. The only time when it's okay to do a script font is if you're like have a letter inserted into your, you know, like somebody's writing a letter and it's inserted. Again, it's just one of those ticky-tacky things. And even then, just italicize it at first and then talk to your editor going forward with it. Joe says, right? How did you not learn that the first 2 times? Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. Pet peeves, editor pet peeves. It's ridiculous. And it's so funny because when I do submissions, it's a totally different hat from my writing hat. And I can see things in other people's work that I absolutely cannot see in my own work. So just because you know the rules and you're confident in your own editorial skills, that does not mean that you don't need somebody to look at your manuscript. Because inevitably, you're going to fork it up. You're going to want somebody to come back behind you and double check your work. Because a lot of times authors know what they meant to say. So, you know, they it's in their head a certain way. And so when they read it, they don't catch the... Oh, Joe. Joe says, and put a space between the lines so we can read it. Oops, she did that in all caps. Joe. Oh, I love you guys. You guys are amazing. So I'm glad you guys get it. I'm glad you guys understand my pain. Because it's so ticky. It's such ridiculous nonsense. But it is. And having those things taken care of will help your submission going in. One of the other questions I get a lot is, you know, when people do a submission, particularly a cold submission to a publisher or an agent, they say, well, how much of my experience do you want? Like, do you want to know what college I went to, what my degrees are in? And I feel like unless your degree is super relevant to what you're writing in, or if you have a writing degree, it's not really worth mentioning. If you're writing a book on, like, I don't know, the Knights Templar, and you got like a history degree, like, yeah, that probably makes sense to mention it. But, you know, if you've got a degree in accounting and you're writing a teen romance, I don't care. It doesn't make a huge difference to me. And honestly, whether an author has a writing degree or not, it doesn't change the way I look at a submission. It's not going to give you any more credibility with me if you have a degree versus not having a degree. So, and I think that's pretty true industry-wide. Like, it just doesn't make a huge difference. Let's see. Helen says, it's nice to have this info from an author's point of view. It's good because I feel like I have kind of that dual perspective because I am an author, but I also work with a publishing house. So I kind of have, you know, experience on both sides, which is nice because a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people are on one side or the other. So having somebody that's been on both sides of it is really nice. I want to talk a little bit about Insta-Freebie for my authors out there. If you guys aren't using Insta-Freebie, I feel like you should be. Insta-Freebie, and it's just instafreebie1word.com, is a great service for authors. If you are, hold on, if you've got a degree in Russian history and you don't help your BFF research it, then are you wasting space? Thank you, Ethan. He says, as he helps me beta read all of my Russian royalty books, you're getting the new Queen book soon, Ethan, and you're going to smack me with something. I can feel it. I can feel it coming like Phil Collins in the air tonight. I feel like I'm gonna have to, I put a disclaimer in the front of the first Queen book that was like, this is wildly not something that's accurate historically, and I'm gonna have to do the same for this one, but it's fun. So sorry, back to Insta-Freebie for the authors. Insta-Freebie has a paid and a free version. So if you want the paid version, there's a little bit more flexibility as far as how you can handle your giveaways, about being who you can send your giveaways to, sort of things like that. But I have always just used the free version and I have never had any issues with it at all. The way it works for an author is you go onto Insta-Freebie and it's safer for you as an author than to just send digital ARCs because it is protected. It's a protected document. They can't, sorry, I keep getting these weird messages popping up. It's a protected document. It's much harder to pirate. It's watermarked. And people can download it in whatever format they want. So it's not a huge, you know, chore finding out, you know, do you want a Mobi file? Do you want an EPUB file? Do you want a PDF? People can just go in, like you upload one file and it will separate it into all the different formats and then people can pick it out how they want it. It's nice because you can track who's getting it. So it's a link that you send to somebody. So if you're having a giveaway, if you want to give away ARCs to your street team, if you want to hold a Facebook giveaway and give away books, it's a great way to do it because then you just send people the link and you can see if they've downloaded it and all of those things. For me, it just feels more secure than sending, you know, an unprotected copy of my work out into the world. It doesn't prevent pirating 100%. I feel like nothing does. Anybody that is any good with a computer at all can scrub, you know, formatting out of a book and throw it online. And piracy is a real problem. Like, book piracy is a real problem. People are so defensive particularly when they do, you know, download these free books that aren't intended to be free books. And they're like, well, it's no different than getting it from a library. It kind of is, because libraries pay us for their copies. Like, we get paid, you know, for the copies that the libraries purchase to borrow out, and also then only one person can get it at a time and it has to be returned and they can't just disseminate 6 million copies to their friends. So it is different. It is different. And we had a discussion about this recently, one of my friends and I, and we had gone to one of the pirating sites and we had found out that one of her books had been downloaded over 37,000 times just from this one site. And even when you're only making like 25 cents to 50 cents a copy on an ebook, it's so defeating to know that, number one, people don't value your work enough to pay less than they would pay for a cup of coffee for a book that you probably poured 6 months to a year into writing. And two, it's very defeating because, you know, we have to keep the lights on. We have to be able to feed ourselves, and this is how we do that. And it is a labor of love for us, but it is also a job. So, I mean, imagine if you went to your job and your boss was like, oh, well, you're working for free today because we're giving away all of the products that we've produced, so you're not going to make any money. It's really hard. It's hard to see that. So anything that we can do to protect ourselves a little bit from those piracy issues is fantastic in my book. Ethan makes inappropriate comments. I love you, Ethan. He says notebook glove equals notebook glove. Protect your ARCs. Yeah, you have to. As an author, you have to be so careful. And it's... one of the things that somebody told me early on was like, oh, you should be flattered. You should be flattered that somebody likes your work enough to steal it. That's like saying that, like, you should be flattered that somebody thought your car was cool enough to steal it out of your driveway. No, that's not how that works. That's not how that works at all. Joe says she numbers hers and changed random words for each one and kept a spreadsheet. That's a good way to do it if you're sending out just regular, like, protected files from your computer. You can number them, you can watermark them. You can put a watermark in Word and then put it into a PDF, and the watermark will show up if you don't know how to do that. It's super easy. You just go to your Insert tab in Word. Again, it doesn't stop the pirating problem. It really doesn't. It is such an issue. It's ridiculous. Kathy Lynn watermarks hers, definitely. And sometimes I'll change the watermark up. So if I'm like getting a group to just like my street team, they'll get a particular watermark. Or if I have a 5-copy giveaway going, it'll get a separate watermark. So I can at least see where these things are coming from. Somebody did something brilliant a couple months ago. I saw that they had preemptively gone to all the major pirate sites and uploaded a copy of their book that ends at like halfway through with a note that basically says you're despicable for stealing this book, and if you want to be a decent human being, here's the link to go purchase it. I thought that was fantastic. I do not have the time to do that. I would. Had I the time, I would totally go and I would troll all those sites and I would leave half-finished copies of my book. Joe says, yeah, it doesn't stop the pirating, but you know who's got it out on social media. Yeah, exactly. You have to do what you can. And so Insta Freebies, just another layer of protection. I think for an author that gives away a lot of digital copies, it's just another layer of protection. I do a lot of times, so with Clean Team particularly, they do a lot of the first book in a series free promotions. So it doesn't bother me as much when I see those books on a pirate site, just because they're already perma-free. They're already free. You can already download them for free online anywhere you want to. So that's not a huge issue for me. But it's when I see then the sequels in those series or whatever that somebody takes and then deliberately puts on the pirate site. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because when I give a book, so for the Queen series, if you've never read the Queen series, the first book is free forever. The first book is free on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble. You can go download it for free to your heart's content. And I made that decision because I want people to read the book and decide if they like it or not. And if they do like it and they want more, they can go then purchase the other two in the series. And I like that for two reasons. Number one, because then someone hasn't invested $5 or $6 into an ebook only to discover that they hate it and leave me a crappy review, which is terrible. But it also, so it helps me sort of hone into my audience. It helps me find those people that do like the book and do like the characters and want more. The other thing it does is it really acts as a really good promotional tool. I will run ads on it. I will, give it away on my newsletter to try and get people, again, to buy the other two books. So Ethan asks, are there people that haven't read the Queen series? I'm sure that there are. Like, I don't know any. But yeah, I'm sure that there are people that haven't read the Queen series. But so if you go and you sign up for my newsletter, if you go over to sherryficklin.com, which is my website, sign up for my newsletter, you'll get an email from me and it'll have links to 4 free ebooks, which are 4 of the first in my series. And they're sort of broken down by genre, so you can kind of look and say, like, what do I like to read? I like paranormal romance. Well, here's, something that you might like. Or I like historical fiction. Here's something you might like. So there's kind of a little bit of something for everyone, which I think really works for me too, because I write a lot under the umbrella of YA and NA, but it's not all in the same subgenre. So what one person may really like one series and really not be into another series. So it kind of gives you a little bit of flexibility. But there's a big difference between me giving those books away, because again, the first Queen book was 6 months of my life poured into writing this book, and then another into editing and marketing it, and it was hours and hours and hours and hours of work. So for me to give it away for free is one thing, but for somebody to steal it is much different, for me, emotionally. It's just terrible. Helen asks, did you know pirating takes place in other genres? Yeah, all genres, all books. It's really amazing to me how they get away with it. Fun fact, I actually was on, somebody had sent me a link to, they were like, hey, I found one of your books on this pirating site. And I was like, there is no way. And I know there was no way because the book was still living on its tiny little home on my desktop. I hadn't sent it to my publishers yet. I hadn't uploaded it anywhere yet. I hadn't even finished writing the very, very end of the book yet. and somebody had like announced that it was on a pirating site. So I don't know how many people downloaded whatever file that was, but it was not my book. And I hope to the pits of my soul that it was a really terrible virus. Like, that sounds awful, but I hope that whoever was trying to steal from me got a horrible virus on their computer and got their credit card stolen, and because I feel like you deserve it at that point, turnabout's fair play. Let's be real. Ethan says, just steal the words out of my mouth. Yup. So, yeah, so I'm a little passionate about the pirating issue, just because as an author, it's one of those things that affects me really directly. Kathy says it's karma. It is. It's just one of those things. And then on the flip side of that, then as a reader who's looking for free books, number one, there's never a shortage of free books. If you go to Amazon and go to their free list, top 100 free, thousands and thousands and thousands of free books. Books that authors are giving you. This is our gift to you. We are giving you these books. Don't then turn around and steal from us. I feel like that's just so sketchy. And then, yeah, she says it's awful how many creeps are out there. It's remarkable how many people think that books should be free for some reason, or that if you're a creative person, you shouldn't get paid for your work, which is weird. Or that my personal favorite is, oh, authors are so rich they don't need to be greedy just because they lost sales in a couple thousand copies. Yeah, we're loaded. Like, I think we've talked about this before, like how much an author actually makes on a book. It's ridiculous how little we get paid. So please don't steal the little bit of revenue that we have coming in from these books, because it's what allows us to do this. It's what allows us to continue writing. Helen says she's way too idealistic. You're just a good person, Helen. You're just a good person. It wouldn't even occur to you to go steal a book when you can, you know, pay for it. And I'll tell you what, it's people like you that really sort of lift me up when I'm feeling down about something like this, because I know that there are so many good people out there, and that for the most part there's way more good people out there than there are terrible people out there. It's just, you know, it's hard to remember that sometimes when you feel like you've been kind of taken advantage of. Kathy Lynn commented, one person justified it because of cliffhangers. She said authors just want your money. Not at all what we want. Not at all what we want. Cliffhangers. Cliffhangers are their own beast, aren't they? Some people love them. Some people hate them. From a publishing standpoint, cliffhangers are brilliant because they do continue that series. You know, they do keep people buying your books. Again, it's not a greed thing. It's a we want to be able to keep writing. In order to do that, we have to eat so we don't starve to death. So we put cliffhangers, not in all books, but in some. If you really hate cliffhangers, romance books, if you go to like the romance book sections, like they'll say right in the description on Amazon, no cliffhanger, HEA, whatever you're looking for, very specific, guaranteed you can find what you're looking for over there if you're into romance books. And I think that's brilliant. Maybe that's something that we should start doing on other genres too, is kind of say, you know, there's cliffhanger, there's no cliffhanger, there's love triangle, there's no love triangle, just so people can kind of know going in what they're in for. But again, when the book is free, you know, if you love it, you hate it, you really haven't wasted anything on it. So again, I feel like that's why those first book free programs work really well, particularly for indie authors. Katie says, it's amazing how people think that creatives don't deserve to be paid. It's a real problem because they work and they deserve to be paid for their time, effort, and education. Absolutely. And that's not just authors, that's artists, that's designers. How many people have come to me and been like, oh, I'm not going to pay, you know, $600 to get a website designed when I can make a free one on Wix. Good for you. Like, go for it. You're not paying for the product that you're getting. You're paying for the hours of training that somebody went into learning how to do your SEO and set it up so that people can find you online. You're paying for somebody who has learned how to do graphics quickly and cleanly and make them neat and make your stuff functional. In the case of an author, you're paying for the 6 months I spend in the library researching tirelessly. Those things are all included in the product that you are given. And I feel like it's so hard when you have people that aren't willing to pay what your art is worth. And as an artist, it's really tempting then to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to put my book for 99 cents or whatever. don't devalue yourself. Don't devalue your work. Don't devalue your art. If you want to do it for marketing reasons, or it's your strategy, or you're trying to get reviews, great. Don't let people pressure you into taking less than you're worth. Because that is a really dangerous thing and a really slippery slope for authors to get into. I feel like I'm talking really fast. Again, lots of cold meds. Lots of cold medicine today. I apologize, but at least I'm not coughing all on the screen, so that's nice. Kathy says she thinks it's a great idea. Insta Freebie. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's really good. We so I'm what they call a hybrid author. Like, I have traditionally published stuff, and I have some indie published stuff, and I have like self-published stuff. And the other thing I will say to authors is, don't be afraid to get help and expect to pay for it. Like, it's sort of one of those you get what you pay for things. Like, yeah, I could have my aunt who's never done any kind of editing in her life look over a book for me. It's not going to help me get it polished the way a proofreader or copy editor might. So if I feel like I need that, A, I have to be willing to pay for it, and B, I need to go ahead and make that commitment to do it. Helen says it's good that you can verbalize how hard it is for artists and authors. It's tough. It's a tough business. And I tell people all the time, if you can imagine doing anything else besides writing and being really happy and content, do that. Because writing is hard. Writing and publishing is a hard business. It's hard in physical ways, it's hard in emotional ways, it's hard in ways that you won't even understand. I'm always amazed how much being an author is not just writing a book. Like, I wish that it was just writing a book, but it is not. And if you can honestly say to yourself, I could be happy doing something else, then do that, because this will be the hardest thing that you ever do. But if you can't, if the idea of doing anything other than writing makes you want to stab yourself in the eye with a fork, then write. Write because you have to write. Whether it's a hobby, whether it's your career, writers, I think, inherently have to tell stories. We're storytellers. So if you're a storyteller, tell your stories. Tell your stories whenever you can, however you can. But, you know, if you have a flight of fancy, like, oh, someday I'd love to write a memoir about my life and it would be great, and you sort of kind of have the idea in the back of your head, but it's not really what you want to do, this isn't the life for you. It's tough. It's a tough gig. It's a tough business. I love it. I wouldn't do anything else. Ever. I wouldn't do anything else. When I first started writing, I was also working nights, and it was so funny because that wasn't my job. Like, writing was my job, and that was like my vacation time away from my job. So to give you an idea of how hard writing is, when my actual job was like the break that I took from writing, like, that's how hard it is. Stacey says she's tried doing other things and always comes back to writing. I'm not saying that it's a mental disease, but it could be a mental disease. Kathy Lynn says she thinks she would scare too many people if she was in a cubicle talking to herself all the time. Preach. I feel that. There's a reason I don't work with people. There's no reason I'm alone most days in my office just chilling. Because, yeah, it's great. Let's see. Oh, I have a couple things going on this week too I want to chat about real quick before I go. Valentine's Day, All the Glitters is coming out. Yay! Which is my second in the Canary Club novellas, the 2 of 3. It is 99 cents on pre-order on Amazon right now. You can go grab it, or you can grab it after it releases on Valentine's Day. It is June's story, and it is romantic and sad and beautiful, and I really think you guys are going to like it. And I think that reading it, you'll go into the Canary novel, like the full novel, knowing her so much better and understanding her so much better. And that was my hope with these novellas, is that you could go into the full world of Canary, because it's such a big world. I really wanted to give everybody a chance to get to know the characters individually before we throw them into this novel together. So it's June's story, and I hope you guys like it. June says June is the best. Of course she is. She's named after you. True story. So, yeah, June's good. It's my 1920s gangster novel. So if you like the new Amazon show Z, Zelda, The Beginning of Everything, which, by the way, is fabulous and by far my favorite thing that Christina Ricci has ever done. Stunning, stunning show. If you like that, you'll love this. Go check it out. It's the second, but they're standalone, so you don't have to read the first one to understand the second one, or vice versa. Kitty says she loves June's story. Thank you. It was interesting to write. It was one of those times where you're writing and your character tells you something you didn't know about them. Those are the best times. Joe loves the Roaring 20s. Me too. Me too, Joe. I keep hoping that the series will really take off and I'll have an excuse to throw like a huge Canary Club party. Like, that's my goal. Like, I want to throw a big 1920s party. Matter of fact, I want to go do it not far from here. There's a town, Leadville, which is literally 2 miles high. It is the tallest incorporated city in the world. And they have a speakeasy, which is fantastic. Wild's Green Hour, it's called. And I went up there to do research. And I want to have my book launch party there. So, you guys are all invited. I'll let you know when. It'll be great. We'll go up there and we'll crash the speakeasy and we'll have so much fun. Katie says, oh my gosh, that would be awesome. It's so cool. They taught me how to prepare absinthe, which I had never... I'm such a dork. Like, I had no idea. So, like, they brought this crazy contraption out that looked like something out of a steampunk movie, and they, like, showed me how it was done, and like, I'm not a licorice fan, which I guess is what absinthe tastes like, is, like, kind of black licorice, but it's just cool. Like, just watching it done is, like, just the coolest thing. So, Katie wants to come to the party. You're invited, Katie! I'm gonna invite all you guys. It's gonna be awesome. We'll all go to Leadville. We'll crash the speakeasy, and it'll be super fun. And we'll all dress up. It'll be great. Helen says it sounds fun. It is fun. It's ridiculously fun, Helen, and they have good food too. They have like ridiculously good food. I don't know if that's like indicative of speakeasies in general, that they're just fun, but I feel like that one was really fun. We kind of bummed around New York when I was there with Clean Teen for BEA last year, and like I was checking out like some of the old buildings and the old speakeasies and stuff, which was really cool. But a lot of them are just like modern bars now, so it wasn't as fun as for me to be able to go in. And this was like a legit speakeasy. Like, there was a hidden door. Like, you'd never know it was there. It was great. Kathy Lynn says she has a dress for it. I need a dress. Where do you get, like, the 1920s dress? Amazon. Where do you get everything? Amazon? Amazon is like, I feel like Amazon is Skynet, like, in its infant stages. Like, one of these days, we're going to be so dependent on Amazon for everything that they're just going to take over the world, and we're just going to be like, it's fine. Like, we don't even care. Kathy Lynn says Amazon. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love it. Before I go, I want to let you guys know, too. So, we had one of my very good friends. We had Rebecca Carpenter on this week. She came in on Monday and was talking about her book, Butterfly Bones, which was way cool. And this coming Monday, Colleen Nye is going to be here to talk about her new book. And she will be on my Facebook Live Monday. So be sure you guys stop by. It'll be way fun. Helen says she has a door with a secret panel. Does it lead to a speakeasy? Because I've seen your house, which is this beautiful brick, like, castle monstrosity of a house. And I feel like if anybody should have a speakeasy in their house, Helen, it is you. That would be way amazing. I keep hoping I'll move into a house that has, like, a hidden room and I'll find it and it'll have treasure in it. Because, again, I'm a writer and I think ridiculous thoughts all the time. June says, embrace your Amazon overlords. I have. As an author, I'm super pro Amazon. I have found that Barnes & Noble, I love my local Barnes & Noble team, but Barnes & Noble, particularly online, is notoriously hard to work with for an author. It is such a pain, they're such a pain in my ass. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. They're terrible. But Amazon, as an author, there's a special, like, number I can call if I have an issue with my book or listing or something's not releasing correctly. I can call them up anytime, talk to a real-life person, and get my issues handled right away. So I feel like they're much more user-friendly for an author than a lot of other platforms. Helen says it's in her mom's house. Oh. Ooh, we're going to have to go explore your mom's house, Helen. That sounds like fun. That sounds like a treasure hunt that I'm just waiting to be a part of. Okay, so you guys have a great week. I'm going to go take some more Dayquil, try to get some more writing done. Oh, I didn't show you guys. I got a new crown for the new Queen book that I'm working on. It is fabulous. Look at that guy. Isn't that cool? It's like, it's got like black, you can't see, it's got like black diamonds. Again, Elizabeth's story is so much darker and so much crazier. I didn't want to get something that was like, had lots of big jewels and colors. I wanted something really kind of dark and gothic. I feel like this was very Elizabeth to me. So I put it on the other day, and I was writing, and I had to run to the store to get some cold medicine for my son, and I forgot to take it off. Like, it's really comfortable. It's surprisingly comfortable. I do that sometimes. I will wear, you know, something or whatever while I'm working on a particular project. So for the hackers, I have this crazy, like, hacker beanie thing that I'll wear, or for the Queen books, I'll wear my tiaras when I'm writing. It helps me immerse a little bit into the world, and then I'll forget that I've got it on, and I'll go to the store or something, and people will just stare at me, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. So if you live in the town that I live in, you'll know. You'll see me, and you'll be like, oh, she must be working on a Queen book, because she's wearing her crazy crown. Helen says she loves the crown. I do dress up like my characters when I write, she asks. I do, and it helps me stay in their head a little bit. So, and the same thing with my office. I realized recently that my office was still sort of covered in a lot of the 1920s stuff, but I had to go through and put all of that away and dig the Queen stuff back out. So around my office right now, like, I have a lot of my Queen stuff back out because that's what I'm working on right now. So I do change the decorations in my office a little bit. You know, not everything, obviously, that'd be very expensive, but to match what I'm working on, I will. So Kathy Lynn says that's awesome. It's crazy. It's neurotic, but it's what works for me. It's what, you know, anytime you're an author, you're always like, how am I going to find my inspiration for this project? Or how am I going to get into the head of this character? When you find something that works for you, just stick with it. Helen says they need to be shaken up when you go out. That's right. I feel like I need like a scepter and a throne made of the bones of my enemies. Like, I don't have a throne, I have a mushroom chair. Like, that's sort of a throne, right? I don't know. Kathy says she has a cloak and hood. Yeah, see? It totally works. People laugh at me all the time. It totally works. Whatever gets you into the head of the characters. For the 1920s books, I went to the antique store and I bought a collection of like vintage 20s record like albums. And I borrowed a record player from a friend and I just listened to them like in my office the whole time I was writing it. So it's very authentic. So I love doing that kind of stuff. I have found that it's harder for the contemporary stuff, like especially like the hacker stuff. Like, I'm like, what am I gonna, you know, how am I gonna, so I had to find like a couple clothing pieces that I felt like Ferris would wear, like very hip kind of modern stuff that I'll wear. So basically sometimes my clothing is very normal and sometimes it's really not. June says she has a devil horns headband. I love that. Ooh, I like it. The people at my costume store know me very well here, so that's always fun. All right, it is time. I have to get to work, and I love you guys. Thank you guys for joining me as always, and I'll see you Monday with Colleen Nye. Bye, sweeties.